The topic is relation schema, relation instance, and integrity constraints. Myself is Dr. K.V. Krishnamraju, Associate Professor, working in Computer Science and Engineering, Sai Gram Krishna Engineering College. The objectives of this lecture is to understand the what is relation schema, to understand relation instance, to understand integrity constraints. The main constraint for representing data in the relational model is a relation. A database is a collection of one or more relations. A relation is simply a table with rows and columns. A relation consists of a relation schema and a relation instance. The schema specifies the relation's name, the name of each field, and the domain of each field. A domain is referred to in a relation schema by the domain name and has a set of associated values. The following schema is an example of students' information in a university database. The field name SID has a domain named string. The set of values associated with domain string is the set of all character strings. The degree is also called arity of a relation is the number of fields in that relation. The degree of students relation is 5. All relational schemas in the database are collectively called as database schema. An instance of a relation is a set of tuples also called records in which each tuple has the same number of fields as the relation schema. A relation instance can be thought of as a table in which each tuple is a row and all rows have the same number of fields. An instance of the student's relation contains 6 tuples. The cardinality of a relation instance is the number of tuples in it. The cardinality of student's relation instance is 6. All relational instances in the database are called as database instance. A DBMS must prevent the entry of incorrect information for maintaining the quality of information in the database. An integrity constraint IC is a condition specified on a database schema and restricts the data that can be stored in an instance of the database. If a database instance satisfies all the integrity constraints specified on the database schema, then it is called legal instance. A DBMS enforces integrity constraints to permit only legal instances to be stored in the database. The DBA or end user defines a database schema and specifies the integrity constraints that must hold on any instance of this database. When a database application is run, the DBMS checks for violations and disallows changes to the data that violate the specified integrity constraints. Many kinds of integrity constraints can be specified in the relational model. They are key constraints, foreign key constraints, and domain key constraints. Key constraints. A key constraint is a minimal subset of the fields of a relation that uniquely identifies a tuple in the relation. Consider the students relation and the constraint is that no two students have the same student ID. This integrity constraint is an example of a key constraint. A set of fields that uniquely identifies a tuple according to a key constraint is called a candidate key for the relation. The candidate key is also called as key. In the case of the students relation, the SID field is a candidate key. A relation may have several candidate keys. For example, the login and age fields of the student's relation may taken together also identify students uniquely. That is, login age is also a key. By stating that login age is a key, the user is declaring that two students may have the same login or age but not both. Out of all available candidate keys, one of the candidate key is designated as primary key. Foreign key constraints. Sometimes the information stored in a relation is linked to the information stored in another relation. If one of the relations is modified, the other must be checked and perhaps modified to keep the data consistent. An integrity constraint involving both relations is called as a foreign key constraint. Suppose that consider students relation. Now consider another relation called enrolled to ensure that only bona fide students can enroll in courses. So any value that appears in the STUDID field in enrolled relation should also appear in the SID field of some tuple in the student's relation. The STUDID field of enrolled is called a foreign key and it refers to SID field of students. So SID is the primary key of students relation. STUDID is the foreign key of enrolled relation. Domain key constraints. A relation schema specifies the domain of each field or column in the relation instance. These domain constraints in the schema specify the values that appear in a column must be drawn from the domain associated with that column. The domain of a field is essentially the type of that field and restricts the values that can appear in the field. Consider the following students relation schema. The field named SID has a domain named string. The set of values associated with domain string is the set of all character strings. In this lecture, we learned about the relation schema, relation instance, and different types of integrity constraints such as key constraints, foreign key constraints, and domain key constraints. Thank you.